Hey, welcome to our special coverage of the China Central Asia Summit. I'm Li Chuan, coming to you live in Beijing. Our top story this hour, leaders of the 5 Central Asian nations, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, arrived at the venue earlier today. They were hosted and welcomed by Chinese President Xi Jinping and his wife, Madam Peng Liyuan. And after arriving, the heads of state gathered on stage, took a group photo, and watched 2 short performances. They are also scheduled to attend a banquet and watch a gala performance. Let's now bring in my colleague Dai Kai. He is joining us live from Xi'an. Great to see you there, Kai. Now, the Central Asia Summit officially kicks off today. We have a state banquet going on now. Tell us more about what has happened on the first day so far.
Of course, Choyuan, tonight President Xi Jinping hosts a welcome ceremony and a banquet for leaders of 5 Central Asian countries. It's a grand celebration, and artists from both China and Central Asian countries performed jointly. So it's after a tight schedule of the day when President Xi Jinping met with heads of state from 5 Central Asian countries and held in-depth talks concerning China's relationship with them. One of the key words here is connectivity. For example, in meeting with the president of Kyrgyzstan, President Xi actually said that both countries should strengthen mutual support and called for promoting the pragmatic cooperation across various fields. He also spoke of the need to enhance connectivity and start the construction of China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan railway at an early date. And also in talks with Tajikistan's President Xi talked about how they should deepen cooperation in terms of economy and trade, agriculture, connectivity, as well as closer people-to-people exchanges. And also on Thursday, the Chinese president met with his counterparts in Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. So leaders from the Central Asian countries spoke highly of the development of the relations with China over the years. They echoed President Xi's remarks, and they said they stand ready to work with China to further that cooperation to the next level. And after the meeting, multiple bilateral documents were signed and joint declarations and statements were signed, and it's expected that more agreements of such kind would be signed tomorrow. Experts believe that the summit would foster the cooperation between China and 5 Central Asian countries, opening up a new chapter in their partnership. Back to the studio, Julian.
A lot to look forward to tomorrow as well. As you were speaking there, we were showing some of the pictures of that welcome ceremony featuring traditional dance performances. Magnificent. Thank you very much, Kai, joining us live from Xi'an. Thanks so much. Now, Chinese President Xi Jinping held talks with President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev of Kazakhstan on Wednesday. Tokayev is in China for China Central Asia Summit and a state visit. Xi Jinping said China and Kazakhstan have successfully cooperated on dozens of important projects since he proposed the Belt and Road Initiative 10 years ago. Tokayev said Kazakhstan is ready to work with China to further strengthen their permanent comprehensive strategic partnership. And after the talks, the 2 heads of state signed a joint statement and witnessed the signing of a raft of agreements, including trade, energy, and agriculture. And on Thursday, Xi Jinping met his Tajik counterpart, Emomali Rahman, in Xi'an. Xi Jinping hailed the development of bilateral ties with Tajikistan into a comprehensive strategic partnership. President Rahman acknowledged the 2 sides' mutual respect and support for each other and reiterated his government's adherence to the One China principle. He said Tajikistan is willing to deepen cooperation with China in areas like trade, agriculture, and the green economy. And after the meeting, the 2 sides signed a joint declaration. China and Tajikistan have issued a joint declaration following bilateral talks.
They agreed to integrate parts of the Belt and Road Initiative and Tajikistan's National Development Strategy 2030. The 2 countries also pledged to expand trade and build a digital Silk Road. China pledges to increase agricultural imports from Tajikistan and provide preferable loans to its social and infrastructure projects. And Tajikistan says it wants China to help improve its high-speed internet and telecommunications network. Both sides have pledged to collaborate on anti-terrorism efforts.
Xi Jinping also met leaders of Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. During Xi's meeting with his Kyrgyz counterpart, Sadir Japarov, The two presidents announced an upgrade of bilateral ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Xi Jinping said China and Kyrgyzstan should strengthen mutual support and provide strong support to each other. He called for pragmatic cooperation with high-quality development under the Belt and Road Initiative. And also on Thursday, he met with Turkmenistan's President Sardar Berdimuhamedov. She recalled Muhammadov's state visit to China in January when they announced a comprehensive strategic partnership. Xi Jinping said China is ready to continue advancing the relationship. And President Xi also held talks with Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. And she noted that he visited Uzbekistan last September and was warmly welcomed by his counterpart. They agree on a commitment to build a community with a shared future. President Xi said China is ready to deepen all-round cooperation. China and Kyrgyzstan have signed a joint declaration aiming to establish a comprehensive strategic partnership for a new era.
The joint statement includes supporting each other's national sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity, and the expansion of communications and exchanges from provincial to local regional levels. It also mentions improving cooperation in information sharing, border control, and security, and the promotion of economic, trade, investment, and connectivity cooperation. The declaration also highlights the creation of a smooth operation highway, improved cross-border logistics, and increased tourism cooperation.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has held a bilateral meeting with his Turkmen counterpart, Sardar Berdimuhamedov. And President Xi says that China is willing to work with Turkmenistan to continuously advance bilateral relations for the benefit of the two peoples. The Turkmen president said that Turkmenistan attaches great importance to Chinese relations and is willing to further strengthen its comprehensive strategic partnership on the basis of mutual respect, equality, and mutual benefit. In January, China and Turkmenistan announced that they would upgrade their relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership, opening a new chapter in bilateral relations. And China is Uzbekistan's biggest trading partner, and freight trains have become the major means of transporting goods between the two nations. In the second episode of Close Neighbors series, our Zhao Yunfei finds out how exporters are benefiting from the infrastructure.
The hustle and bustle at Chorsu Bazaar. It's a market that fulfills daily necessities in Tashkent and also is a display of Uzbekistan's cultural identity. Even if you don't buy anything at the Chorsu Bazaar, the vendors will encourage you to try some dry fruits. They're proud of what they're selling, and dry fruits are also major export products to China. Walnuts, dried apricots, and raisins. Uzbekistan exporters sell large quantities of dried fruits to China to meet the growing demand.
O'zbekistondan eksport bo'lgan mahsulot.
Products exported from Uzbekistan will go through a reprocessing process in China. The new products can enter another country's market. In this case, the relationship between Uzbekistan and China will be stronger.
Shipping by train can take about 2 weeks. In China's Zhengzhou, almost half of its China-Europe freight trains go to Central Asia. Due to the rising trade volume, exporters have to compete for space. This container yard in central China is filled with goods. There's one train carrying some 50 containers to Tashkent almost every other day.
The number of China-Europe freight trains is increasing. The goods are more diverse, and the route is connecting more and more countries.
Home appliances and raw materials are the major export products from China to Uzbekistan. The cargo senders and receivers choose freight trains based on efficiency and price.
If it is going to Central Asia, there is no great advantage in sea transportation. The inland region has no seaport. The railway will have a natural advantage. The trains exit the border from Xinjiang and soon will arrive in the 5 Central Asian countries.
A train network connecting Central China and Central Asia. Zhao Yunfei, CGTN.
All right, let me bring in our guests, Professor Wang Xinxong and Ms. Han Hua. So we're standing by for that live performances after the state leaders finished their state dinner. So let's talk a little bit about cooperation between China and Central Asian countries. Professor Wang earlier mentioned that, Central Asia is an important energy supplier to China, actually, and residents here in Beijing and Shanghai can actually use gas from Turkmenistan. That's a great example of tangible benefits cooperation has brought to other peoples. What can we look out for in the future? What kind of cooperation projects are in store there?
Well, energy trade is still going to be a very important focal point between China and Central Asia. And given the fact that Chinese economy is also turning greener and greener, and gas obviously is a greener source of energy than coal, and that's why we've been paying a lot of attention to importing natural gas from many of the countries. And like I said earlier, pipeline gas is less risky and also cheaper in comparison to LNG that has to be shipped usually through ocean shipping lanes, which then makes the transportation subject to geopolitical threats, possible threats. That's why, we are dealing with imported natural gas and oil from the Middle East by building the port of Gwadar in Pakistan, so that eventually there is a possibility that we can cut short the sea shipping lane to make the transportation of energy less riskier. But again, like I said earlier, I think the pipeline gas is going to continue to be a focal point. But at the same time, we noticed that the Central Asian countries are also transitioning their economy to be greener. And this is a global trend to make the world development more sustainable. That's why China is also investing very heavily in Central Asian countries for this green transition. And by the way, like Wang Guan said, in countries like Tajikistan and Kazakhstan, out of 365 days a year, nearly 300 days are sunny days. And Kazakhstan president called the country a sun belt. And their counterpart to Belt and Road Initiative is called Bright Road. This is naming after their sunny days. So that means there can be a lot of solar energy sources to be taken advantage of. But all of that needs know-how, needs capital investments, and which China has a lot of know-how in, for example, building solar panels. China also is, especially the private businesses, are now eyeing on the market, growing market of green transition in Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and other Central Asian countries. But at the same time, we need to understand that the green transition is only a small part of the national economy at this moment. Green energy only accounts for about 3% of national GDP, which means that these countries are still relying very heavily on traditional energy sources like coal, which is very pollutive. So all of that is saying that this is a long shot. Still, the market is very prospective, and China is very busily engaged in helping the Central Asian countries to transition to a greener economy.
And Ms. Han, you work closely with teams from these countries with regard to Belt and Road Initiative. You're an expert on this. What are some of the Belt and Road projects that seem to stand out to you the most?
One of the most important projects that is regenerated or gaining its momentum is this railroad between China, Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan. So I'm thinking that this will bear a lot of hope from all these three countries, and from these three countries extending to the other countries. I noticed that during the bilateral meetings between Chinese President Xi Jinping and the head of states of the other 5 countries, at least the bilateral relationship is positioned as a comprehensive strategic partnership. So this laid a very solid foundation, because the comprehensive strategic partnership means the mutual trust, back-to-back relationship, in my opinion. So this involves a lot of long-term investment, capital involved, people involved, labor intensive involved. So this must have a mutual trust relationship or foundation to lay such a grand strategic plan for both parties. So regarding the energy investment, like the solar panels manufacturing, regarding the people-to-people exchange, all the way to the railroad build up, these all needs this kind of mutual trust. So down the road for the Belt and Road Initiative, I noticed that even it was initiated and proposed in the Central Asian countries, actually for the past 10 years, we saw a lot of projects initiated and development in some other countries like in Europe, in Africa, in even Latin American countries. So the Central Asian countries, I think they are catching up in this Belt and Road Initiative with a lot of infrastructure building, and to make the Belt and Road Initiative into a greener version, into a more digital version. So this creates a lot of potential. Wang Guan just shared his personal story of using Pinduoduo in Kazakhstan. And when I was leaving Uzbekistan 2 weeks ago, I went to the bazaar just like your colleague Zhao Yunfei did. I bought a lot of walnuts and also some apricots. And I also noticed that, and also proved by the local people, that the cherries from Uzbekistan is also very good, very famous, but they need this kind of freight trains as well as other infrastructure to help shipping the cherries to China, to Chinese market. So this is just a very small story of the digital economy, how digital economy can help enhance the Belt and Road Initiative between China and the Central Asian countries. Of course, there are a lot of other cooperation potentials with Belt and Road Initiative, including but not limited to financial institutions cooperation, the using of RMB instead of dollars in the trade settlement, as well as the poverty alleviation, because both China and these Central Asian countries, we are still agricultural economies. So we have a lot to learn from each other, and we need these agricultural products from these Central Asian countries, and these countries also maybe need some of the agricultural products from China as well. I noticed that China is also the number one trading partner of Uzbekistan. So it is believed that maybe China can be also the number one trading partners with all these Central Asian countries as well.
The markets are quite complementary from both sides. Thank you very much. Stay with me. China and 5 Central Asian nations, namely Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, have long worked together as partners to address regional security threats. Now, their efforts have also been conducted within multilateral frameworks, such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia. CGTN's Gao Yiming reports.
Tackling security threats has been a priority for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization since its founding back in 2001. China and 4 of the 5 Central Asian nations are among the founding members and take up over half of the seats in the group. The SCO Establishment Declaration says the member states will cooperate closely to implement the Shanghai Convention on Combating Terrorism, Separatism, and Extremism. Over the years, China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, along with other member states, have also signed a series of agreements that aim to promote peace and regional security. Since 2002, member countries have also held at least 14 joint exercises with focuses on anti-terrorism and peace building. China and the 5 Central Asian nations are also part of the Intergovernmental Forum, Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia, also known as the CICA. The forum was first proposed by Kazakhstani President Nursultan Nazarbayev in October 1992 at the 47th session of the United Nations General Assembly, with the aim of enhancing cooperation towards promoting peace, security, and stability in Asia. China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan are member states, while Turkmenistan is an observer state. Back in 2014, at the 4th CICA summit in Shanghai, Chinese President Xi Jinping proposed a new Asian security concept, with aims to advocate common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security in Asia. He called for respecting and ensuring the security of all countries and said no country should attempt to dominate regional security affairs or infringe upon the legitimate rights and interests of other countries.
With the changing of times, we cannot let ourselves still stay in a Cold War mindset. We should promote a sustainable security outlook on Asia by upholding the ideas of commonality and cooperation.
2022 marked the 30 years of diplomatic relations between China and the 5 Central Asian nations. In the keynote speech to mark the friendship milestone, President Xi stressed the need to strengthen the shield among the 6 countries for defending peace. He called for them to work together to continue to combat terrorist, extremist, and separatist forces, deepen cooperation in areas such as border management and control, and work together to strengthen the regional security net. Leaders of the 5 Central Asian nations also affirmed standing for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of each other and China, and together addressing regional challenges and safeguarding the security and strategic interests of the 6 nations. Gao Yiming, CGTN.
China and 5 Central Asian countries aim to boost cooperation in a variety of fields. Let's now take a look at some of these.
In 2022, China and the 5 Central Asia countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, launched the Data Security Cooperation Initiative during the China Central Asia Foreign Ministers meeting in Kazakhstan. The initiative calls for coordinated efforts to prevent threats to global data security and a comprehensive view of data security based on facts. It opposes the use of information technology to steal data of other countries or infringe on personal information. It says companies should abide by laws of other states, and cross-border data should be obtained through multilateral and bilateral agreements. The initiative also stresses that companies should not install backdoors in their products to illegally obtain users' data or force users to upgrade their systems and devices. Energy is another key area of cooperation. The 10,000-kilometer-long China Central Asia natural gas pipeline, which runs from the border between Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan to West China's Horgos, is the world's longest natural gas pipeline. By 2022, it had delivered more than 40 billion cubic meters of natural gas to China, replacing the use of 532 million metric tons of coal. The pipeline has guaranteed gas consumption for more than 500 million residents in 27 provinces and the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. Another major pipeline is the China-Kazakhstan oil pipeline, running from Adirau in Kazakhstan to West China's Alashankou, with a total length of over 2,800 kilometers. The pipeline delivers over 10 million tons of crude oil to China annually, playing an important role in China's energy security. The 6 countries have also made strides in agricultural technology cooperation. In Uzbekistan, China's drip irrigation technology has been widely used during this year's spring plow, improving crop yield and enhancing local food security. In Kazakhstan, China's wheat breeding technology has helped boost crop production. A special type of wheat developed by Chinese experts has maintained steady yields for years.
So a wide range of cooperation projects being mentioned there, and China and Central Asia have cooperated on security for years now. Security cooperation is definitely going to be another major focus at this year's China Central Asia Summit. What do you think the leaders will talk about, Professor?
Well, the security cooperation has been going on since the beginning of the diplomatic relations in the early 1990s, and when the 5 countries got independent from formerly Soviet Union, especially for the 3 countries that border with China. We're sharing a border as long as 3,200 kilometers. And then it was also a time, when Islamic fundamentalism was becoming prevalent, and terrorist actions were becoming prevalent in many parts of the world. And in fact, China's Xinjiang region was subject to such threats, and some of the very egregious incidents happened in Xinjiang, partly due to the Islamic fundamentalism and terrorism hidden in the Central Asian region. That's why China paid very important attention to working closely with Central Asian countries, especially the 3 countries that border with China, to make sure that the separatist, extremist forces are not going to spill over to the China side. But the way you do it, you cannot just put intensive pressure on cracking down against terrorism all day and all night. What you can alternatively do is to develop local economy. And China has always upheld this principle of nexus between development and the security. Development is the precondition of security. That's why China began to invest in Central Asia, not just for the sake of Chinese economy, but for the sake of maintaining local, regional, and Chinese security. Mm-hmm. And now going to the more recent issue of Afghanistan, and two out of the 5 Central Asian countries are especially concerned about the issue of Afghanistan. That's Tajikistan and Uzbekistan.
How damaging is U.S. hasty withdrawal from Afghanistan to these countries?
Well, I think it's fair to say that the U.S. Created this problem, or at least it is part of this Afghanistan problem. But then it left a vacuum, in Afghanistan, and which is now being governed by the Taliban, and China is still negotiating, working very intensively with the Taliban government. But what China and Tajikistan and Uzbekistan are mostly concerned is that the ISIS can still work out of terrorist plans in some regions, possibly in China. So that's our top concern, and we want to make sure that we work very closely with the two countries, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. In fact, not long ago, the foreign ministers of China, Iran, and Russia gathered in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, to talk about the Afghanistan development and security issues. That tells us that all these countries are concerned about Afghanistan problem, but overall, more broadly, the security cooperation is very key in the bilateral relations.
Definitely, and China has launched several initiatives to promote regional security. For example, the Global Security Initiative, that is one of them. How do you see China's role in it? How much can China help?
Before speaking of the Global Security Initiative, I want to mention my immediate thoughts about from the Data Security Initiative is that the United States should probably learn from China and Central Asian countries' efforts in protecting the data initiative. So this is a very good example that, while the United States is policing the world by doing this data surveillance even to the foreign country leaders, whereas China and the Central Asian countries have already realize the potential damage and security concerns about this data protection, and initiated these joint efforts to protect the data across the borders, across the countries. So this is a very good initiative that can be learned by the other countries. So this is the first point I want to make. And speaking of the security initiative and the security cooperation, yes, since the independence of these Central Asian countries in the early 1990s, there have been some efforts by China and the Central Asian countries in the security cooperation. Mostly at that time, for the first 10 or 15 years, it was anti-terrorism. I'm not saying that the anti-terrorism is a finishing task right now, but certainly because of the Global Security Initiative proposed by China, I think we have entered into a next stage of security protection and security cooperation. And nowadays, the central task is definitely not the anti-terrorism because it's kind of stabilized. Of course, Afghanistan is a new turbulent issue created by the United States, but I can see the China and Central Asian countries having the same objective to contain the security problem within and Afghanistan and some security spillovers beyond Afghanistan. So these initiatives and these efforts have created some fruits. So this is a good point. On the other side, I think the security issues will continue along with the development problem. So if we take more efforts on both the development problem and the security problems, maybe these security issues can be tackled alongside the development initiative and the development potential and the cooperation between China and the Central Asian countries. So this is definitely creating a new momentum between China and Central Asian countries. As I said, both sides have adopted a people-centered, people-satisfied development strategy. So this definitely includes the security concerns among the peoples in these countries. So these efforts will not be stopped, but these efforts can be sophisticated in some other efforts, like we jointly cooperate together, we jointly jointly develop, and we jointly bring our people more better livelihood, and these security issues can be tackled along the way.
And maybe we could have more effective mechanisms as well. Thank you very much. Stay with me. Now, this year marks the 15th anniversary of the China Central Asia gas pipeline. The cross-border artery natural gas pipeline runs over 1,800 kilometers from Turkmenistan through Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan to China. Our reporter Peng Liyuan caught up with some of the people behind this groundbreaking initiative.
An energy artery connects Central Asia and China, traversing the vast Gobi Desert of Uzbekistan. And in this intricate network lies a compressor station akin to a beating heart, tirelessly processing natural gas and propelling it eastward. Amidst unforgiving weather, a united force of Chinese and Uzbek workers stands resolute, dedicating their days and nights to safeguard the seamless operation of these vital pipelines. For Ling Qi, the station manager with 7 years of experience in Uzbekistan, this feat would not have been possible without coordination and adaptation to overcome cross-cultural challenges.
Uzbekistan and China each have their own distinct management systems and standards. We leverage complementary advantages with our Chinese team excelling in technical expertise and the Uzbek team demonstrating strong hands-on skills. Together, we implement small reforms and address practical issues so as to improve quality and efficiency, ensure the safe operation of the pipeline, and contribute to technological innovation.
The team prioritizes skills improvement to ensure no one is left behind. Alongside Ling, Zamir Mamadov serves as an example of the personal growth facilitated by such mindset. Within a mere 8 years of joining the company, he has leveled up from being a fresh graduate to becoming a deputy manager.
We don't have the barrier as a language between Uzbek and the Chinese staff. We have the drills and the training paths for the technical part of the equipment. Every day we are working here just improve ourselves, our skills, our knowledge, experience. It's linked each together, the Chinese side and Uzbek side.
Zooming out for a wider view, their unwavering dedication ripple out to broader impact.
Workers here told me that these pipelines stretch all the way to China, almost along the Asian Silk Road that facilitates exchanges in the region. And today, this Silk Road serves as an energy lifeline that links Central Asia and China.
At present, the total capacity of the 3 gas pipelines stands at an impressive 55 billion cubic meters per year. Since inception in 2009, they have successfully transported over 400 billion cubic meters of natural gas. That equates a substantial decrease of 500 million tons in carbon dioxide emissions.
Geopolitical influences, including regional conflicts, have posed significant challenges for the traditional transportation industry, given the changing landscape of energy structures. However, in terms of opportunities, I am more optimistic. We need to stay steady and focused, ensuring the success of our traditional project while maximizing the full potential of its core competitiveness. Both green development and digital transformation are key areas that will drive our future growth and expansion.
From the remote lands to the bustling cities, the China Central Asia pipeline has touched the lives of hundreds of millions of people, not only creating jobs, fueling economic growth, but also fostering environmental sustainability. And this vital infrastructure will persistently deliver energy, advancements, and prosperity to the region, exemplifying the collaborative spirit and partnership between China and Central Asia. Peng Liyuan, CGTN, Bukhara in Uzbekistan.
China's energy cooperation with Central Asia has established a strong foundation and produced positive outcomes, emerging as a significant driver for the Belt and Road Initiative. And this partnership is anticipated to continue accelerating collaboration in both traditional and new energy sectors. Reporter Sun Xinbo has more.
Over the years, China has maintained a long-standing alliance with Central Asian countries in the energy sector. The China Central Asia Natural Gas Pipeline ABC line and the China-Kazakhstan crude oil pipeline have been successful traditional infrastructure projects and symbols of two regions' cooperation. According to PipeChina, the China-Kazakhstan crude oil pipeline has delivered 150 million tons of crude oil to China since 2006, with China importing over 10 million tons of crude oil from Kazakhstan in 2020 alone. Additionally, the Central Asia Gas Pipeline's entire ABC line imported 43.2 billion cubic meters of natural gas last year, equating to roughly 30% of China's total natural gas imports. Apart from the traditional energy sector, China and Central Asia have been exploring new potentials in energy cooperation. China has been actively involved in the manufacturing and installation of equipment at the Rohum hydropower station in Tajikistan since 2018, which is the largest hydropower station in Central Asia. Additionally, China Energy Engineering Corporation began constructing a 1 gigawatt wind power project in Pokhara, Uzbekistan in 2022. It is expected to become the most extensive single wind power project in Central Asia after completion. This year, the Ministry of Energy in Uzbekistan signed an MOU with CEC to establish 3 solar photovoltaic power plants with a combined capacity of 2,000 megawatts. Moving forward, given the energy gap challenges and the goal of carbon neutrality in Central Asia's energy development, it is expected that the partnership between China and Central Asia in the energy sector will be strengthened further. Su Xinbo, CGTN, Beijing.
Ms. Han, what could be the impact of increasing energy cooperation between China and Central Asia countries?
Yeah, it can be, very important. It's been 10 years since the Belt and Road Initiative was first proposed in one of the Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan. But the development stage are very different. For China and, for example, for China and Latin America, it's about trade, it's about agriculture, import and export. It's about many Latin American countries wanting to become the hubs of the new Belt and Road Initiative, because in the past, the Latin American countries were never in the Asian Silk Road route. But for China and Africa, for example, it's about the infrastructure building, it's about the financial cooperation. And for China and European countries, it's about trade, it's about capital investment, it's about high-tech transfer. So for China and Central Asian countries, I feel that it is really called a road, just like Belt and Road, because this road, economic development road, was first proposed between China and the Central Asian countries. So it's about the road to energy, it's about the road to prosperity, it's about the road to raising the livelihood of people from China and from Central Asian countries. And energy can be a very strong and important component on this road. So we attach great importance to the infrastructure building of the energy pipelines. We attach great importance to the settlement, financial settlement of this energy cooperation. For example, whether we can use RMB instead of US dollars for the future settlement of this kind of cooperation. And in addition to this traditional energy cooperation, whether we can utilize our solar panel capacity and these green resources from Central Asian countries, these are all very good, promising potential for the energy cooperation down the road.
Yeah, from traditional energy to solar energy, like you mentioned, and green energy. Could this kind of cooperation be a good model or a plausible model for other regions?
Oh, definitely. I think the entire world is aiming at transitioning the economy to be greener and more sustainable, because we have no other choice. And given the more acceleration of the issue of climate change. But speaking of the economic development situation in Central Asia, energy is still a very traditional energy, fossil fuel and hydrocarbon energy sources are still the main pillar of their national economies. And in the past, before China became a major importer of energy resources from Central Asia, Central Asian gas and oil used to go to the international markets. For example, the US, Europe, Russia, Iran even. But a situation changes. U.S. has discovered its own gas reserve, so it's now a net exporter of gas, and the U.S. pretty much imports its oil from Canada, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia. And in Europe, the transportation of oil and gas from Central Asia will be very difficult, given that there is no existing infrastructure. And building infrastructure, by the way, is extremely expensive. So that leaves Central Asia without too many choices when it comes to the energy market, and China becomes a very natural choice for the exports of natural resources for Central Asia, given China's booming economy and a huge desire for natural resources. But the situation also is changing in the sense that the Chinese economy is also transitioning, and the Chinese authority has announced the carbon neutrality and carbon peak goals. And the government has rolled out a series of policies to transitioning the Chinese economy from relying on traditional conventional resources, energy resources, to sustainable energy. So that means that in the near future, the energy cooperation will continue to be the pillar. At the same time, the nature of it is going to change gradually.
Yeah, and as we are talking about China getting friendlier, getting cozy with Central Asian countries, the United States is also seeking closer engagement. You earlier mentioned no U.S. president has visited the region, but however, Secretary of State Antony Blinken has visited Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan earlier this year, signaling a possible policy shift in the region. How do you see that balance play out?
Well, also, like I said earlier, I'm not trying to portray the relationship between China and Central Asia in any broader context of geopolitical competition. Like I said, the cooperation between China and Central Asian countries, especially under the umbrella of Belt and Road Initiative, is not an exclusive club. This is an inclusive, cooperative platform.
Sorry to interrupt. Next up is Rediscovering China.
من فرهنگ چای چینی رو خیلی دوست می‌دارم.
Сотрудничество между двумя странами, Кыргызстаном, Китаем, с каждым годом все было крепче и крепче.
Tədrisçilik Xitayda oxuyub bilməliyəm.
Har ikki tomon olimlari bir-biriga nisbatan o'ta chuqur hurmat bilan bir-birimizga qarab kelganmiz.
Еліне, екі мемлекеттің достығына, адамдарға үлес қосқым келеді. Құрметті достар, менің атым Қарлығаш Мыңжасарова. Туған елім Қазақстан. Мен Қытайдың Шэньчжэнь қаласында Абор халықаралық ассоциациясының бас хатшысымын. Осы қалада тұрғанда, жұмыс істегенде мен көп уақытында Қытай тілін және ағылшын тілін қолданамын. 陈小姐你好。手机已经到前台了是吗？非常感谢。大学毕业之后，我在中国和哈萨克斯坦的一些合资石油公司，当年刚好是深圳市“一带一路”经济技术合作协会找一个秘书长，通过面试之后就搬到中国深圳。在深圳一般没有这种外地人或者外来人的感觉像在家一样。你好，不好意思，3三房间是应该有一个手机，是没错。谢谢。这个包装的还真好。首都机场关。我的宝贝回来了。太高兴了，太高兴了！我已经没有相信我能够再看到他。我的法国朋友发了给我42个信息，6个电话找我找不到，收到很多导演的电话。手机我丢了3次，每次都给找回来。在中国没有一次我丢东西没有找来，每次都找来。中国人对我非常好的印象。我从20岁开始到现在，我走了50个国家，其中长期住过大概10多个国家。我觉得最安全的国家是中国。我是可以凌晨3点钟出门，凌晨5点钟出门，我都一点都不担心有什么事情。赵总，
好久没见到了，
这么长时间没见你谢谢。
瘦了一点哦，
有一点点。
对，太好了。
赵总虽然是我的同事，家里孩子都好吗？
都挺好的。
但是我们的关系不是平时同事的关系，我们是像一个姐妹的关系。没见她有3年了。我们在深圳市“一带一路”经济技术合作协会工作过程当中做了不少项目。中国和哈萨克斯坦是个邻国，所以我确实非常的希望我们的经济关系会越来越强。哈萨克斯坦能源领域发展得很好，但是我们还是看蛋和生产为主。如果将来我们的中国公司还能够加工成不同的产品，然后把这个产品可以卖到相关的客户，这是对两国都会有利益。我现在开始在社交平台播放一些视频、照片，给哈萨克斯坦的朋友们、中亚的邻居们介绍中国。Добрый день, дорогие друзья! Сегодня хочу представить вам город Шэньчжэнь, который находится на юге Китая, провинция Гуандong. 因为很多人还没来过中国，或者来过一次其他的一个城市，但是中国那么大。有这么多的省，而且都不同，包括我也想更多的中国朋友们能够了解哈萨克斯坦的景点。如果他们想去旅游的话，他们会知道哪个地方最适合去。我有一个梦想，我想把我的父母和弟弟们带到中国旅游，因为从我小时候到现在，我每天说中国，我自己一直在中国，但是他们一次都没来过，所以我非常的希望今明年我能够把他们带到中国来，他们会更加了解我和我对中国的爱。
Итак, начинаем наш урок. Во-первых, здравствуйте. Здравствуйте. Отлично, супер, молодцы, 可以, да. Следующее. 现在我自我介绍一下, да? 然后我们开始认识. Здравствуйте, меня зовут Бактыгуль. Я приехала из Кыргызстана. На данный момент я нахожусь в Китае, город Инчуань. Здесь в этом городе я уже нахожусь 13 лет. Работаю преподавателем в Северном национальном университете. Преподаю русский язык. Во-первых, когда я прилетела первый раз в Китай, как вы знаете, знания китайского языка не были настолько, как говорится. Если ты не знаешь языка, ты не можешь это выразить, ты не можешь найти людей, с кем ты мог бы общаться, да. В этот момент я начала понимать другой способ, то есть энергию я перенаправила на художество, то есть начала рисовать. Рисую это все благодаря мужу, потому что муж у меня художник, тоже преподает художественное искусство в университете. Я сидела, как раз в тот период я скучала по родине, скучала по Кыргызстану, я очень хотела домой. И я открыла краски, начала рисовать. И как-то так получилось, что я просто рисовала свое настроение, рисовала свое состояние, да. Показала мужу, муж посмотрел, говорит, хорошо, ему понравилось. И с того момента я начала рисовать.
他的这个画法哈，他也不是油画的传统的那个绘画技法。他每笔我都不知道他要干啥，不像中国人画画，我能知道下面他要干啥。对他我完全不知道。
我喜欢这种感觉，油画就是像黄油一样。因为在我们家里就是吃早餐有面包，然后到拿去黄油蹭一下，这种动作感觉很舒服的。那么没想到油画也是这种动作，画画的时候就用这个油画刀，这也是像吃早餐的感觉。Первый раз полетела в Пекин, пошла на Пекинскую оперу. Я поначалу думала, что это классно, опера. Кто не понимает оперу? Это же так просто. Нет, я зашла, ничего не поняла. Они все кричали, пели, или кричали. Я даже не поняла, что они делают. Но единственное, что я запомнила, это их костюмы. Это то, как они двигались. Это было очень красиво. Это было так ярко. И мне очень понравилось. И я тоже помню, приехала домой. И прям начала рисовать то, что я запомнила, потому что если я не понимаю язык, но, скорее всего, окей, я запомнила все вот эти краски, запомнила вот эти одеяния, запомнила, как они двигались. Это было грандиозно.
这个感觉，那个京剧的感觉是吧？
必须摆上才出现效果哈，对，好看哈。Я по-своему получила кайф от этого. Хотя не поняла язык, но получила кайф от того, что люди делали на сцене. Это было очень красиво. Мы недавно открыли с мужем свою арт-галерею. Это мое любимое место в Инчуане. И, конечно, это такое место, где мы творим, рисуем, любим принимать друзей, гостей, художников всех.
Мама, 等等我，这个好看。
这个更好看。
贺兰山的花开了。
拿着像个面包。
Этот город настолько спокойный, настолько приятный, и все благоприятные условия для того, чтобы здесь создавались семьи. В плане того, что по сравнению с другими городами Китая, в Инчуане очень маленькое население. Народа, да, но, конечно, это население, большое количество людей, большое количество транспорта. Все быстро, все аккуратно, все вот прям как по часикам. Алло, қандайсыңар? Қандайсыңар?
你好，你好。
给你们带好。
谢谢，谢谢。
Сотрудничество между двумя странами, Кыргызстаном, Китаем, с каждым годом все было крепче и крепче.
سلام، نام من مستقیم است، نام چینی من منکه و من یکی از کشورهای یک کمربند و یک راه تاجیکستان می باشم. من فرهنگ چای چینی را خیلی دوست می دارم. من 2 مرتبه در المپیاد چای اشتراک کرده برای تیار کردن چای سلوله سام جایهای اول را گرفتم. من بار اول سال 2013 به چین آمدم و حالا باشد دانشجوی اسپیرانت دانشگاه تکنولوژی زhejiang هستم و همزمان لایحه تجارتی خود را دارم و این لایحه پلتفرم تجارتی بین دولت‌های یک کمربند یک راه را میباشد. PPT 的时候我们要怎么弄？
你可以看嘛，
这个
对啊，你看你想到什么？
尊敬的各位评委老师，大家好。我们的项目是 CGTP 一带一路 B2B 跨境贸易平台。项目的亮点是商业模式很清晰，市场规模很大，还有着国际化的团队。我们平台已经有500多工厂，还有商家物流商已经入驻我们的平台，他们已经产生了一些订单。
就说你这个项目呢是存在着比较巨大的优势的。那特别是在浙江有比较强大的商业环境，然后一个充分的这个
너리 치 일보서 여기哇，哎，你好，你们这里是批发的是吗？
对，是的。
你们有
是什么？
就是你们有没有往国外机票？就是
外贸是吧？
对对对对。
目前没有，
目前没有
你们来了可以有。
哦，那就好，那就好
你中文。怎么可以讲得这么好？
在中国待很久了。
在哪？你喜欢我们中国吗？
那必须的。我们先加个微信。
好的，那你加微信啊？
对你们，因为我要拍一些你们的产品发到国外。
是哪国的？
他这个伞来。
啊什么什么？
先加。
先加是吗？
好的，谢谢你们。好，那我们先走了，拜拜。OK， 再见，再见。من محیط صاحبکاری و اینوواسیونی در چین را خیلی دوست می‌دارم. در این زمان بین آسیای مرکزی و چین در زمینه رشد تجارت و فرهنگ، اقلیم و انرژتیک و غیره همکاری‌های خیلی زیاد دارند. ترقیات خطای طرف بهتر شده است و بازاری خیلی کلان هم دارد. حکومت بسیار چاره‌ها دستگیری می‌اندیشند و روش زندگی و کار چینی‌ها خیلی با سرعت است. آنها همه چیز را خیلی زود انجام می‌دهند. 暖风熏得游人醉，
对，
然后知八寒咒，
做变州
啊，这个是变，
对，
哇，这个字我第一次见。در برابر این من شعر چینی رو نیز دوست می‌دارم。比西子是
暖风，然后再加上傍晚，然后西湖的歌舞，他们都沉醉在这个西湖周边了。
با همراه همکورسانمان بسیار وقت شعرهای چینی رو با آواز بلند می‌خواندیم و جذابیت فرهنگ کلاسیکی چینی رو احساس می‌کردیم. 毕竟西湖6月中，风光不与四时同。接天莲叶无穷碧，映日荷花别样红。 من هنگام تیار کردن چای درختی کشیدم که این درخت تشبوس یک کمربند و یک رخ را ایفاده میکند و هر یک برگ این دولت معنای یک کشوری، یک کمربند و یک رخ را ایفاده میکند. امیدوارم که این درخت بیش از سبز و خورم گردد و مملکت‌های یک کمربند یک رخ را زیاد گرداند.
我应该看了。等一下，我有点Assalamu alaikum 忘了自己的母语。Assalamu alaikum hormatli。Assalamu alaikum hormatli ilişir. Men Türkmenistan Mar vilayet devletinin etrafının yaşayışı Gurduf Wonch. Men 2018 yıldan Hazretçili Xitay Halk Respublikasında okap bilim alıyorum. 我对中国有特别的那种热情。我很小时候就比较喜欢看那个成龙的电影，那种在电影中飞，然后就是那种飞然后打架。我以为中国人真的是会飞的，但是不会飞，看来都是假的。我专业是海洋技术，就喜欢钓鱼嘛。 就也就是跟水有关系呀。
跟人类最息息相关的叫边界层，这个一共是255米，然后我们这里分了15层探测，每一层都有温度、湿度、风向、风速。
老师们对我挺好的，会帮助的，有什么困难什么的，他们一直会担心，这我得要谢谢他们。 我出国第一件事就是看国家的发展，就感觉发展的很好，人多。我自己国家就人比较少，来了中国必须得是跟本地人交流啊。我也交了很多朋友，我一位朋友是演员，另一个朋友是做律师的，我们都是打排球认识的。 见见他们就关系就这么好了。İşten açık olsun. İşten kodun. OK。拿出来开始吧，咱来吧，喝一个来，走吧。
跟他是可以说是无国界，而且我过年的时候。 他就是在我家过的，他在中国过的第一年就是在我家，我爸妈还有我家人都非常欢迎他。阿姨已经把那个红包就准备好了，就给我，然后我也不好意思了。带到我爸我妈那儿说，哎呦，叔叔阿姨真好。然后呢说我也想家了，然后说胡哥你等一下，我说干啥去？我先出去一下，给他爸打电话，打电话打了半小时，他爸放心了，回来该玩玩。 有个文化节，我也就是第一次参加，给他们看看是我们国家的那个舞蹈。
我们这个 Kushtet 的舞跳一般在婚礼的时候，我们跳舞。很久之前海边有钓鱼的时候，有一个网，然后就把那个网拿起来了，然后就这样来了这样的动作。
คนยา
我是一直在中国，已经3年了，在天津大学读本科。我的专业就是食品科学与工程。在中国用中文学习比较难的，但是我们努力。
在智能与计算学部，我是软件工程学生。我是从小时候对计算机方面有感兴趣，然后我们和中国同学一起互相帮助的学习，有特别的有意思。
Meni ismim Komiljon, familiyam Tojibayev. O'zbekistondanman, Toshkent shahrida yashayman. Yoshim 49 da. O'zbekiston Respublikasi Fanlar akademiyasiga qarashli botanika institutida ishlayman. Mening kasbim tabiiy sharoitda o'sadigan o'simlik turlarini o'rganishdan iborat. Men ko'proq o'sha o'simliklarning filogeniyasi kelib chiqishi, biogeografiyasi bo'yicha mutaxassisman va ko'proq piyozboshli o'simliklar bilan shug'ullanaman. Jumladan O'zbekiston, O'rta Osiyo hududida tarqalgan lola turlarini o'rganaman. Oldin 2013-yilda kelganman. O'shanda meni Kunming shahrida o'simlik turlarini barkodlash bo'yicha xalqaro konferensiyaga taklif etishgan edi. Shundan beri Kunming shahri Yunan provinsiyasiga men juda ham ko'p marta bordim va mana shu 2013-yilda shu institut bilan bizning mustahkam aloqalarimiz Global Allium Garden dasturi doirasida yovvoyi piyoz bog'larini tashkil etganimiz bo'ldi. 2017-yilda Kunming shahrida, 1 yil o'tib 2018-yilda Toshkent shahrida mana shunday markazni tashkil etdik. Bundan tashqari o'tgan vaqt oralig'ida ikkita institut o'rtasidagi hamkorlikdagi qo'shma laboratoriyalar yaratildi va ular ham muvaffaqiyatli ishlab kelmoqda. Urumchi shahriga 1 yil o'tib, ya'ni 2014-yilda birinchi marta kelganman. Endi Urumchi shahridagi ekologiya va geografiya instituti bilan ham biz bir qator hamkorlikdagi loyihalarni hozirgacha birga amalga oshirib kelmoqdamiz va bu loyihalar asosan shu cho'l hududlarini, qurg'oqchilik hududlaridagi o'simliklar qoplamini o'rganishga qaratilgan. Bu ish bizga juda ham ko'p jihatlardan kerak bo'ladi. Chunki mana bunday rasmni olganimizdan keyin biz gerbariy namunasini kattalashtirishimiz mumkin va monitor orqali, kompyuter monitori orqali o'simlikni xarakterli xususiyatlarini bevosita ko'rish imkoniyati paydo bo'ladi. Bizning qo'limizda raqamlashtirilgan tasviri bo'lganida biz gerbariy namunasini oshiqcha bezovta qilishga hojat yo'q. Bizga zamonaviy texnologiyalar shunday yaxshi imkoniyat beradiki, bu orqali biz o'simlikning mayda-mayda detallarini ham ko'rish imkoniyatimiz paydo bo'ladi. Bundan tashqari endi men bu gerbariy namunasini ko'rish uchun O'zbekistondan, Toshkentdan Xitoyga maxsus kelishim shart emas. Buni internet orqali yoki hamkasblarim bilan o'zaro ma'lumot almashish orqali bu gerbariy namunasini men Toshkent shahrida turib ham ko'rishim mumkin. Bu birinchi navbatda olimlar o'rtasidagi xalqaro aloqani, o'zaro munosabatlarni rivojlantirishga yordam beradigan bo'lsa, ikkinchi tomondan ilmiy ishlarimizning saviyasini orttirishga, raqamli texnologiyalardan foydalanishga imkoniyat beradi. Xitoylik olimlar bilan meni hamkorligimni nafaqat men yoki meni shogirdlarim davom ettiryapti. Bundan tashqari meni oila a'zolarim, xususan meni qizim ham davom ettiryapti. Midaxon. Ha, yaxshimisan? I want to introduce you to my friends. Okay? Hi. Yeah. 就是乌米的。
OK， 乌米的
，Yeah，
Simpson。
Yeah。
Hoping next time you come Urumqi.
Yeah, Urumqi. And stayed several days. Yeah.
She's major tulipa.
Yeah.
Tulipa.
Yeah. She can check some specimens in here.
Yeah.
Ikkita taraf, ikkita mamlakat olimlarini hamkorlik davomida bir-biri bilan bir kelishmovchiligi umuman bo'lmagan desam, bu albatta noto'g'ri bo'ladi. Ilmiy hayotda doimo bahslar, fikrlar kelishmovchiligi yoki nuqtai nazarlarning kelishmovchiligi albatta bu bo'lib turadi. Bu o'zi aslida bu tabiiy holat. Mana shunday bo'lish kerak. Bir qarama-qarshiliklarsiz, bir tortishuvlarsiz ilmiy hayotni tasavvur etib bo'lmaydi, rivojlanishni tasavvur etib bo'lmaydi. Endi eng muhim tomoni shundan iboratki, hozirgacha har ikki tomon olimlari bir-biriga nisbatan o'ta chuqur hurmat bilan bir-birimizga qarab kelganmiz. Balki mana shu narsa shu o'tgan 10 yil davomida mana hozirgacha ikkita mamlakatning olimlarini bir-biri bilan mustahkam ilmiy aloqalarda bo'lib kelayotganligi, nafaqat ilmiy aloqalar mustahkam, yuqori bosqichda do'stlik aloqalariga aylanganligi ham bir-birimizga bo'lgan chuqur o'zaro hurmat mavjud bo'lganligidir. Menimcha shunday.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hey, welcome to our special coverage of the China Central Asia Summit. Our top story, when leaders from the 5 Central Asian countries arrived in Xi'an, local dancers welcomed them with a traditional waist drum performance. The performance is a large-scale folk dance with a history of over 2,000 years. It's been listed as an intangible cultural heritage since 2006. The Ansai waist drum dance is an impressive spectacle that consists of vigorous dances and leaps accompanied by frantic drumming. The dancers wear costumes and headdresses similar to those of ancient Chinese soldiers. Let's talk more about the cultural exchanges between China and Central Asian countries. Let me bring in my guest, Professor Wang Xinsong from the School of Social Development and Public Policy at Beijing Normal University, and Ms. Han Hua, President of the Beijing Belt and Road Cooperative Community. Great to have you, both of us, staying with us for the entire special coverage. So let's talk about it. China and Central Asian countries actually has a pretty long history of friendly exchanges, right? Talk to us about it. What kind of cultural exchanges have been going on between the two sides?
Well, speaking of hospitality, you can always count on China and Chinese people. Chinese people are so famous for its big heart, warm hearts, welcoming friends and guests from all over the world. And it is also rooted back in the ancient Silk Road and the ancient cities like Xi'an in particular, because when Xi'an was still Chang'an, it is one of the not only the starting point of Asian Silk Road, but also the hub for China and Central Asian countries' culture exchange and a lot of activities, including but not limited to even the Central Asian people are seeking jobs all the way up to ministry level jobs and the military officers in Tang Dynasty. So this shows a kind of feature of inclusiveness, open mind, heart of the Tang people, of course of the Chinese people. So in the Asian Silk Road, when Zhang Qian, you mentioned, when he visited the Central Asian countries and the regions, he brought not only the silk, garments, goods that Asian Chinese has to offer, but she also acted as the special envoy between the different civilizations and different cultures. He definitely brought back to China of their Central Asian the cultures and the civilizations. So it is a very two-way street, and it is also reflected today in the Belt and Road Initiative about the cultural exchange. When I was in Uzbekistan, I just told you that I watched in awe about the wallpaper relics in its history museum from its archaeological explorations back in 1960s about the wallpapers depicting the Tang Dynasty's prosperity and the emperors from the Tang Dynasty when they celebrated the Chinese Dragon Festival, and the Central Asian people depicted it with some Central Asia features. This is a very good example of this two-way street exchange, and they're also seeking our help or maybe assistance in its further archaeological exploration down the road. So this with Chinese experiences and know-hows and skill sets in this particular area, I think there are a lot of great potential. Maybe we can see a lot of miracles down the road about these cultural activities. And also with regard to the people-to-people exchange, I met a lot of Uzbekistan students who actually studied in Beijing and Shanghai in the foreign language studies universities, and they speak very fluent Chinese, and they did a lot of trade and other business activities with Chinese counterparts. So this shows a great potential, and they said that they will do this for the lifetime because they see the bilateral relationship will be a very sustainable one.
And Professor, you are from Xi'an. This is your hometown. How do you feel that the city is now being put under spotlight because of the summit?
Well, obviously I feel proud, and like I said, I was born and raised in Xi'an, and before I moved to Beijing, and so looking at the scenes from the screen of what was happening right now in the city is quite a touchy moment. But I quite agree with Madame Han when she was saying about recalling the history of Xi'an or Chang'an in the Chinese history, when it was the capital city of China for hundreds of years, and during which the city was also a hub, not just for domestic economic and political activities, but also for international exchange back then. And many of the exchanges were between what was then China and what was then Central Asia and Western Asia. So many political officers, emissaries, for example, diplomats, they lived in Xi'an and they established families, and many of them actually, after retirement, they stayed in Xi'an, and so they kind of naturally integrated themselves into the Chinese culture and the Chinese community. And along the way, they also brought many products and cultural elements and habits to the city of Xi'an, and in a broader sense to China. So we were just talking about the musical instruments. Many of the traditional Chinese musical instruments actually came from Western and Central Asia. So China inherited, borrowed many cultural elements from that part of Asia. Vice versa, China also, offered many choices and options in terms of culture to the Central Asian people.
Talk to us also about some of the efforts on cultural preservation in both China and Central Asian countries. Did you see some cooperation, good examples?
Yeah, when I visited the museum, the National Museum in Samarkand, and they told me actually, the staff members in the museum told me that they preserved the relics very well. It is called a national park where the relics are there.
Sorry to interrupt. Okay. We want to play this to our viewers. We've got the footage. Chinese President Xi Jinping and leaders from the Central Asian countries have watched a welcome gala in Xi'an. It also opens a year of youth exchange in culture and arts. Let's take a look at the performance. That's the landscape of Xi'an. The entire city is being lit up tonight to welcome foreign leaders from the 5 Central Asian countries.
а уважение к культурному многообразию создает наш прекрасный общий мир.
紫云楼前，人影相辉，歌舞响应，
city
彰
wall
显
of
礼仪
Xi'an.
之邦气象。
Now earlier, the leaders have just had a grand state dinner together, and it's now for some entertainment. Our first performance is dance performance, resonance of Qin melody and Tang rhythms.
Что напоминает нам о процветании и славе города Чанг'ань, столицы 13 императорских династий. Предлагаем вашему вниманию танец, дыхание эпох.
Now Xi'an has been the capital city of Qin dynasty and Tang dynasty. That is why we've prepared this performance. It's reflecting the history of the city.
小提琴与中国民族器
For
乐
next up, we have the
交相
second
奏和
performance, instrumental
带来丝绸之路
ensemble,
上
The Sun
跨越
Shines
国
on
界的和
Tashkurgan.
鸣
It uses the
请
folk
欣赏
melodies and
器乐
instruments
合
of the
奏
Tajiks
阳
in the
光照耀
southwest
着
of Xinjiang.
踏
This is a
实果
piece
敢
written by Chinese composer Chen Gang in the 1970s. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with it, Tashkurgan is perched in the Pamirs, the world's second highest peak, Mount Horgir, also known as K2, towers in the south, and also in the north stands Mount Muztaghtata, also known as the father of ice peaks. If you're just joining us, you're now watching a special performance at the welcome ceremony at the China Central Asia Summit. This is a performance called The Sun Shines on Tasker Again.
在这万象更新
Up
的美好
next
时节，
is
一
Dance
群斗凤年
Spring.
华
Well,
的姑
spring
娘
carries significant, special significance for China. It is the start of the new year, and the Chinese have an old proverb, make your plan for the year in spring and make your plan for the day in the morning.
Танец молодых девушек в пору весеннего цветения. В их грациозных движениях воплотились общие чаяния народов соседних стран, связанных между собой общими горами и реками. На сцене танец «Весна».
So this is the third performance tonight. Ms. Han, how do you feel?
Well, this is very traditional Chinese dance. I think it can be appreciated by the Central Asian countries' leaders. You know, Central Asian countries are really famous, you know, for its ethnic group dances as well. When I had the chance to watch a documentary about the Central Asia dances, I was also amazed to find that they try to, film the dances with the artists performing the different dances from different ethnic groups in front of the natural relics. So this builds a very sharp contrast of the beauty. And for one moment of watching the dances and the music performances just now, I was thinking the artists from all the 6 countries are transcending from the Tang Dynasty and they are performing for us. But then I saw the video of the modern day, buildings of Chang'an, of Xi'an these days. So I thought, oh, this is a great connection between the old history and the modern day development. So we are not only talking about the Asian Silk Road and the cultural exchange, but also we are eyeing on the future of how the Belt and Road Initiative can be developed under the framework of cultural exchange and the people-to-people connectivity.
Yeah, we've seen the performances from Tang Dynasty, Qin Dynasty, all the way to modern times. And earlier we've seen a musical ensemble really blending musical instruments from China and Central Asian countries. They blend perfectly together.
Yes, and this is kind of a new integration and a new motivation of these music performances.
And of course, this is all taking place in the city of Xi'an. The city was called Chang'an in ancient times. It was one of the birthplaces of the Chinese nation and Eastern civilization. It's now being put under spotlight because the Central Asia China Summit is all taking place here in the city. gathering 6 presidents from China and the 5 Central Asian countries. And up next is Qinqiang Opera and Folk Song performance, The Blossoming Splendor of Opera and Folk Song.
Народным напевом Северной Шанси и фрагментом из оперы «Qinqiang». Она называется
Well, Xinjiang opera and Shaanxi folk songs generally refers to folk rap music in regions in Shaanxi province, which originated from the Book of Odes. Now, these ancient poems produced in Shaanxi account for about a half in the Book of Odes. Musical styles, as you can imagine, in Shaanxi are quite different between the border of Qinling Mountains, and they have very different personality characteristics in northern Shaanxi, mid Shaanxi, and southern Shaanxi. Alright, this is the folk dance from Xi'an. These songs are rough, resounding, and said to be very free. You can feel the traits of feeling, expression and narration, and a sense of drama there. This must be something that you are familiar with, right, Professor?
Well, this is quite an innovative arrangement in the very beginning of this performance, because the guy in the white clothing, white garment, he was singing in the style of northern Shaanxi. And like you said, Shaanxi is divided into 3 parts. And the middle part is called Guanzhong, which is surrounded by the Low S Plateau in the north and the Qinling Mountain in the south. So up in the north, you have north of Shaanxi, where the culture is very similar to the Mongol culture, because it borders Inner Mongolia. But the southern Shaanxi has a cultural heritage from the southern China, because it borders Hubei province, and it also, its agriculture also features rice growing rather than flower growing, which is the feature in central Shaanxi. So that guy who was in white garment. He was singing in the northern Shaanxi style.
Yeah.
But Qinqiang actually is originated from central China.
This is what we're seeing now.
Right.
This is Qinqiang Opera. It's a local Chinese opera that mainly thrives in North China's Shaanxi province, as well as neighboring regions in northwest China, like Gansu and Qinghai provinces, and even in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous regions. Earlier, the guy was singing Shanbei folk songs. It was a song about the Yellow River. I mean, the Yellow River of Huanghe is known as the Mother River of China. And that does carry significance for people in Xi'an, not only Xi'an, but also the whole of China.
Right. And the way he sings that kind of style is called Xintianyou, and it originated from North Shaanxi, primarily because of the terrain. And terrain in northern Shaanxi is Loess Plateau, and there are many mountain ridges and beams which separated communities from each other. So two communities can be really close, but they're separated by a mountain ridge, which means that the only way they can communicate with each other is to yell with each other, singing each other. Yeah, exactly. And so they sing with a very loud voice, and that becomes the style.
And this opera is all about the story of spring. It's called Excerpt from Dream of Returning to Chang'an. Some of the lyrics is saying that in the realms of heavens and earth, where sun and moon abide, for countless time I've dreamed of Chang'an, a journey deep inside. Once again, that speaks a lot about the history of Xi'an, once a city known as Chang'an, isn't it? It has been the capital city for 13 dynasties, from the Zhou dynasties to the Tang dynasties. It's a city that has a long history, thousands of years of history. And
when we speak of the dialogue between different civilizations, we must pay our, own tribute and respect to our own civilization. So this Qinqiang opera, among other Peking opera, maybe Zhejiang operas, I think that one of the features is that to convey the message of our, knowing the past, to respect the history, as well as meeting and expecting the future. So this is a great feature of this Chinese traditional art performances, and this is definitely shown in this performance and the arrangement of this performance. So Mother Yellow River is the cradle of our own civilization. So this is represented in this Qinqiang opera, and that the highest tone shows the performance skill and its feeling towards this our own civilization, and it creates a very perfect atmosphere for tonight's dialogue among different civilizations.
That's right. That is also the earliest operated musical systems. Up next is the last performance of the night, song performance Beauty in Harmony. The song's name means the world needs to uphold the beauty of each civilization and the diversity of civilizations in the world. The song's Chinese name originated from a phrase that was first created by Chinese sociologist Fei Xiaotong. And the song will be performed by artists from both China and Central Asian countries. Some celebrity singers from Kazakhstan as well, Turkmenistan and Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan.
明月在一边温柔的祝福，前几年做一本敞开的邮船，用满希望看天南地北人，山河万里远，这支玲珑心中的同心门，前门往后转。
This is a singer from Kazakhstan. He's actually quite well known here in China, and he is loved by many Chinese audience. Once again, this performance will be performed all together with 6 singers from China and also the 5 Central Asian countries.
这不完的微蒸馏，望不断的领头鱼。
We've seen some performances here tonight, really showing the process of cultural blending, right? Performers, artists performing together.
夜酒清门路，为玄台泛起，唱着无远近。 人理想为你，我明月在一边温柔的祝福，前几年送一杯展开的烟船，多年希望看天南地北人，山河万里远。 这这玲珑心中的同心门，前门往后转。 жарқын жүз толық саған ау толған айдай көргем жоқ сұлу қызды сүрә мұндай ауай қыр мұрын қарақат көз ау жазық маңдай болсаңшы сүйген жарым дәл осындай ауай үркей бес қалам бір күйай дүрдарас бірде тату бәрдарас темір менен шалдарас келмесін деп қызарас өздерің неге келмесін деп сол қызбенен біз арас өздерің неге келмесін деп сол қызбенен біз арас Алатоғы қырғыз қонғанда айланып сен жұлдыз бір-бірға ақ жол тойлы үйге айланды.
This is a singer from Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan, of course, is a country bounded by Kazakhstan on the northwest and north and by China on the east and south. Kyrgyzstan and China have established their diplomatic relations in 1992. They are close neighbors sharing a long tradition of friendship. And after establishing diplomatic relations, the two countries have maintained relatively close ties in trade, investment, regional affairs, and cultural communication. Kyrgyzstan has been earliest supporters and participants of China's Belt and Road Initiative. is an artist from Tajikistan, and Tajikistan encompasses the smallest amount of land among the 5 Central Asian states, but in terms of elevation, it surpasses them all, enclosing more and higher mountains than any other countries in the region. China and Tajikistan established official diplomatic relations in 1992. This is a song from Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan is a country in South Central Asia with a population of about 5 million, an area around 500,000 square kilometers, or almost the size of Spain. Neighboring countries are Iran and Afghanistan to the south, and Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan to the north. Turkmenistan also has a beautiful coast on the Caspian Sea, but it's otherwise landlocked. Now, China and Turkmenistan established diplomatic relations in January 1992. Now, one of the most important aspects of Turkmenistan-China cooperation is the energy field, as evidenced by the completion and launch of the Turkmenistan-China gas pipeline at the end of 2009. This is a song from Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is a landlocked country in Central Asia. China and Uzbekistan established diplomatic relations in 1992. China is one of Uzbekistan's most important partners in 2022. Bilateral trade grew 20% year on year, and China and Uzbekistan cooperation covers areas such as the chemical, textile, oil, and gas industries. that concludes that performance at the welcome ceremony of China Central Asia Summit. How do you feel?
Great, magnificent. You know, I was in Kyrgyzstan 20 years ago and I was in Uzbekistan 2 weeks ago. These 20 years saw the great development of these Central Asian countries, but the main theme has not changed, which is to develop stronger and stronger ties with China, which is good, and to co-develop the Belt and Road Initiative together. So this is great, and I think the performances is a real and true reflection of how the Chinese famous socialist Fei Xiaotong has said about 各美其美, we respect and enjoy our own beauty, but then a shared beauty is the beacon of a shared future.
Professor Wang, your thoughts?
Well, I really enjoy this performance, which featured the exact characteristic of China's cultural exchange with the Central Asian countries in the past 2,000 years of time. And it was both traditional and modern, and including performers from both China and Central Asian countries. And all in all, I think this is becoming a very important emotional moment for the heads of states to have very important political meetings tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Ms. Han Hua and Professor Wang Xinsong. We've reaching the end of the performance. Tomorrow, of course, is another day of the summit. What do you think they'll talk about tomorrow?
Well, I think the discussion is going to be even deepened tomorrow based on today's agreements and bilateral meetings, and there will probably be more concrete discussion on items, including further opening up the Chinese market and further cooperation on energy and further working with each other on security issues and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we are also expecting signing ceremonies tomorrow, so lots of concrete deliverables. Thank you very much for staying with me for the whole night, Ms. Han Hua and Professor Wang Xinsong. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And that does it for our special coverage of China Central Asia Summit here on CGTN. I'm Li Qiuan in Beijing. On behalf of the whole team here, appreciate watching. Bye for now.